daily life. All right. So we made it through the first half of this year of 2023, and we're beginning the second half. What a year this has been.
Yes.
What a year it has been, right? In just 6 months, so much has happened. Brenda, as I said, is away, and I just want to give a pat on the back for her. She's been supporting our grant writing process here, and she had submitted another grant that we collaborated with together, and we were approved for that second one. So shout out to Brenda, our team, and shout out to the organization that thought it worthy to just fund the work that we do here. So when I think about, this week as we started the month of July, and I love July because I'm a summer baby and I love the warm weather, but we have been blessed this past week with our weekly programming. I know Ben and Julie, who's here with me, were away. Where were you guys at? Dominican Republic.
2 spots in the Bahamas.
All right, so that you were all over for about a week or so. Yeah, on a cruise. And so we just thank God for their safe travels and allowing them to return safely. We had a great week with our Divine Feminine Study Group.
Oh, okay.
Good support from the community for our community Bible study group and for our Friday meditation. It was just great. We're beginning to just get more response from the community, and we're grateful for that.
Wonderful.
But before we get into today, the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court. The Supreme Court. What can we say about what can we say for our non-elected branch of government?
Right.
What can we say? I was tempted to post something on social media regarding the decisions, the 2 that came down from the Supreme Court, because I, like a lot of us, had these inner rumblings of, heard setback, and, in our lifetimes, we've seen progress made, and then we've seen the pendulum swing the other way. It's like, when are we going to get off this back and forth? And this comes on this week on just about a year, less than a year, I think, from the decision on Roe v. Wade.
Right.
So it's like these 3 major turning the tables around. And I thought, as I watched some of the other posts that other people in spiritual communities were sharing on Facebook, how are we as a spiritual community who embodies the Christ principle to respond? Do we? Are we silent? Are we mute? Did we just put our head in the sand and pretend like this is not our battle and not even think about this? And my first response was, our response is in faith. It's always in faith, most certainly knowing that whatever decision man makes, no matter how harsh, they're only temporal.
Right.
We know they're only temporal. It seems like an eternity sometimes, but it's but for a moment. Because the spirit of life and liberty within us, that Christ's principle that dwells in us, cannot be bound. It cannot be bound by anything that man or woman or anyone else legislates or does. So we are aware and we are very cognizant of the limitations of those who dwell amongst us in positions of authority. The scripture tells us we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So we are well aware that there are people who have limited views, limited ideas of themselves and others who sit in positions of power and authority. People who sit there in very fearful places, feeling like their position in the country and the world is being encroached upon. Those who've invested so much of their life of maintaining a place of superiority, and they're threatened that others may snatch that away. So we're well aware of that. So faith is always our response. On the other hand, we also must consider that faith without works is what? It's dead. Faith without works is dead. So while we know our victory is assured, we must fight the good fight of faith, meaning we're not silent. We're not silent in the face of these kind of oppressive and commands and dictates and policies and legislation that's coming up from Florida, from that state, from the Supreme Court and other throughout the country. We must lend our voice to this idea that our God is a God of compassion, a God of justice, a God that even says to us, as much as you've done it to the least of these, you've done it unto me. You can't neglect those that are marginalized in the community and think that you're not marginalizing the God of the universe. Because Jesus embodying this says, as much as you've looked at those that stood in need, and as much as you've oppressed others, you've done it unto me. So every decision that's made is not an indictment against just people of color or the LGBTQI community or marginalized communities. It's an indictment against the very God of the universe. And we know that will not stand, that will not hold. So I am both, this week I had somewhat ambivalent feelings in the sense that one part of me, wanted to like, the other part of me was just rest in the knowledge that this too shall pass. This too shall pass. And we fight on. We live to fight another day. And at some point, we will have that more perfect community. We will have that more compassionate community. If we all do our due diligence, don't be silent, keep the faith and fight on. I just wanted to share before we move on, there is a book that I've used in one of the classes that I've taught over the last couple of years. Was published in 2017, right before the pandemic. It's called The Color of Law. It's the forgotten history of how our government, I don't know if the camera can pick this up, how our government segregated America. And for anyone that is still a little bit at all confused about whether affirmative action was maybe not sufficient, but yet necessary to try to right the wrongs of this society, read Richard Rothstein's book. It opens up not just individual prejudices and how African Americans suffered through slavery, but it talks after slavery, how the government of the US put in policies and laws that restricted Black folks from owning property, from getting mortgages, from having their mortgages insured by FHA. Even the Veterans Administration would have policies in place that African Americans that served this country with the uniform on could not receive mortgages to buy a home. This wasn't in 1800. This wasn't just 1910, about 1950s and 60s and 70s. We're talking about a generation ago. So when we think about why was affirmative action so needed, it wasn't perfect because the balances of justice, it has to be right. And we know anything put in place to help us often is misused, and that's the risk we take. But I encourage you to read that book. All right, enough of me. I want to get off the bully pulpit. I just needed to say that. I just needed to say that before we go on. I'm sure Reverend John is going to end his message. I have no doubt he can articulate this far better than I can. So I'm just looking forward to hearing his sermon and his message on today. So our outline for today is we're going to open up with a meditation. And in the opening prayer, I'm going to ask Minister Obina, and welcome from Nigeria. It's good to see you. It's always good to see our family from across the sea in the motherland. Thank you for being here. I'm going to ask after the opening meditation, if you would do the opening prayer for us. Following that, then Sister Bettina, if you would do the opening scripture and then the quote, and then I'll come back. That sounds like a plan, everyone? Sounds good. Everybody's doing okay? I haven't heard your voices. Just unmute and give me a shout out. Everybody's doing okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. I love hearing your voices. Hearing your voices. So as we prepare to meditate, and meditation is John and Brenda's expertise, but I practice meditation myself. It's been a part of my spiritual practice for many years. And it's the one thing that's able to calm me without using those other go-to things like food or substance or other kind of erratic behavior, to just kind of center myself and bring myself back to a place of peace. So I always encourage it. But as we prepare to go into the meditation today, we do not, Wes is here, but he is not, doesn't have stable enough Wi-Fi to play for us throughout the service. So I'm going to be using actually Brenda's singing bowl. And I want to just mark that as the opening of our meditation. And if we would just bow our heads and put ourselves in a very quiet, restful place, relaxing your shoulders, grounding yourself in the energy of your body, knowing that this is your body temple that is very sacred and it's holy. It is divinely created and uniquely created just for you. You were sent here to occupy this temple in a very special way. And the work you've been called to do, no one else can do but you. So as you rest in that knowledge and just sit in your purpose, I want us to just take a few collective breaths together. And we're going to breathe in deeply. Inhaling and release. Inhaling and release. Once again, inhale and release. And as we center this meditation and our thought for today and for this month, a more just society. I want that to just ring through your ears and through your soul and through the cells of your body as the singing bowl did. A more just society. I want to just share a brief quote with you from a noted theologian and minister. Said, one of God's central qualities is compassion, a word that in Hebrew is related to the word womb. Not only is compassion a female image suggesting the source of life and nourishment, but it also has a feeling dimension. God is a compassionate spirit, feels for us as a mother feels for the children of her womb. Spirit feels the suffering of the world and participates in it. And as we meditate on that, know that whatever we feel and experience, Spirit also is in this struggle with us. Scripture tells us that the whole creation groaneth, waiting for the redemption of our bodies. So we're not alone. Whatever setback we may experience, whatever disappointment we may experience, know that we're not in this alone. All around us as we observe the pregnant creation, the pregnant potential that we are filled with, the possibility is here that we can bring forth a more just, compassionate, and loving society. Indeed, as we meditate on this thought, just know that perhaps the pains we are feeling are not the pains of trouble, but they are the pains of birth, of birthing, of labor, the struggle to bring forth, the struggle to give birth, the struggle to bring out into the universe that which holds the life that we all desire to be wed to. The Spirit of God is arousing us within in this very moment. In this very moment, it is quickening our body as the contractions, as we feel the contractions in our body, that those are birthing pains. And let us know to not be discouraged and not be dismayed, that we are bringing forth that which is good and just and righteous and loving and compassionate. As the world is changing around us, the earth is giving birth. The universe is giving birth. Let us just rest in that knowledge that as we reframe this moment from a negativity to the pain, from being that of sorrow or despair or disappointment to that of contraction, we are bringing forth that which God has created us to do in purpose as we renew and restore this earth. As we come back to center, let's take a few